So you want to learn more about the National Front, the Front National, the Rassemblement National. Well, don't worry, I got you. Let's start from the beginning. The history. Grab some popcorn and get comfy because this is going to take a bit. Note, I am not responsible for any headaches which may occur from my bad French pronunciations. The National Front was founded in 1972 by these two guys, Francis Duprat and François Boignot. The National Front's origins were rooted in French nationalism with strong stances on the controls of immigration. They have been frequently accused of xenophobia and anti-Semitism. They stood on the fringes of French politics for the first century and were seen as France's contributions to the European neo-fascist movement. They notably resurrected French fascist slogans from the 30s. The National Front appealed to Algerian war vets and followers of Pierre Pujade's right-wing populist movement Pujadeism from the 50s. In fact, Le Pen was actually tied to this movement and won a seat in the National Assembly in 1956 at Pujadeism's peak. The National Front has had slow electoral success. I wonder why. Could it be because of them reviving many fascist ideas and openly anti-Semitic and xenophobic views? Maybe. I don't know. In 1981, Le Pen did not get the 500 signatures required to be on the presidential ballot. In the early 80s, the Front National achieved strong support in mayoral elections in Paris and Troyes, winning 10 seats in the European Parliament. In 1986, they won 10% of the vote in 35 National Assembly seats. In 1988, Le Pen got around 15% of the popular vote in the presidential election. But the Front National secured only a few assembly seats. By 1989, the Front National retained only 10 seats in Parliament. During this time, Le Pen was massively divisive and said things such as minimizing the Holocaust. Because of this, the party ended up receiving various fines and widespread criticism from the public. In the 1990s, the Front National gained much more. They had exponential growth with success in many elections and a growing youth base. In 1995, Le Pen once again got 15% of the vote in the presidential race. And members of the party won mayoral elections in Toulon, Orange, and Maurienne, with a former party member becoming a mayor of Nice. The party continued to characterize itself as outside of the establishment, but remained oppositional to almost all of the mainstream parties. Even the French Communist Party and the neo-Gaullist Rally for the Republic were all considered too mainstream for the Front National. The Front National has dealt with some party factionalism and a series of internal power conflicts throughout. The most significant split occurred in 1999, when the Front National Delegate General Bruno Maigret left the party together with about half of its grassroots and cadres. The Margretiste split of 1999 had a big impact on the Front National. It substantially reduced its organizational and membership strengths, while resulting also in electoral competition between the Front National and Maigret's newly formed Mouvement National Republican. However, the MNR failed to achieve electoral relevance, whereas the Front National continued to grow. In 2002, Le Pen won the first round of the presidential election over Socialist Prime Minister Lionel Jospin. The second round reaction to Le Pen was massive, with parties from across the political spectrum working together to elect incumbent Jacques Chirac to office.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine.
This was the largest margin of victory in the history of the French presidency. In 2007, the French court fined Le Pen €10,000 for a comment that he made in 2005, which violated France's statute on Holocaust denial. The Front National's local and regional performances began to falter in the 2000s, and Le Pen became a liability for the party's growth. Marine Le Pen, his daughter, was now clearly being groomed to succeed him. In 2011, Marine Le Pen took over as a leader of the National Front. She distanced herself from her father's extreme views and presented instead a platform based on immigration, particularly from Islamic countries, being a threat to France. There were record showings in the first round of cantonal elections in March, and the Front National prevailed in 2 districts. In 2012, Marine Le Pen finished third in the presidential elections, but did not go on to the second round. She had gotten 18% of the vote, which was the highest ever for a National Front presidential candidate. This was because Le Pen made the party look like a legitimate alternative to mainstream parties. After this, the party continued to rise in popularity. It did well in local elections in March of 2014 and finished first in elections for European Parliament in May. It had secured 25% of the vote, which was the best ever national performance. Its main platform was based on Euroscepticism. In 2015, Jean-Marie Le Pen and Marine Le Pen could not get along, and Le Pen Sr. was subsequently ousted from the party in August. After a terror attack in Paris in November that killed 130 plus people, the party ended up capitalizing on an anti-Islamic sentiment. In 2016, Marine Le Pen claimed that Brexit and Trump are proof that her, emphasis on the her, brand of populism is on the rise. Polls showed Marine Le Pen in the lead for the 2017 presidential election. French elections are divided into 2 rounds of voting, and in the first round of elections, she won 21% of the vote, closely behind Emmanuel Macron with 24% of the vote. During the second round of voting, Emmanuel Macron pulled ahead, winning with 66% of the vote. After Marine Le Pen's defeat in 2017, her niece, Marianne Marchal Le Pen, left the party. People seemed to believe that Marianne was vying for power externally. She opened a school in Lyon to teach French culture, political science, and management, which is also a right-wing finishing school, and spoke at the annual conference of U.S. conservatives in February 2018 after Vice President Pence. Recently, the Front National changed its name to the National Rally, or Rassemblement National. The rebranding occurred because Marine Le Pen felt the name and the history attached to it was keeping voters away. She said, "It must become clear to all that we have become a party intent on governing. More than a project, this name must be a rallying cry, a call to join us." Alright, so that's everything you need to know about the history. Still with us? No? Good. The ideology. The Rassemblement National's ideology has remained mostly unchanged over the years, relying on French nationalism, anti-Semitism, xenophobia, and their platform contains, in their words, a strong stance on immigration with security-focused views. The party also follows Euroscepticism and populist ideas. Marine Le Pen has made it clear that despite changing the name and attempting to move away from some of the party's history, its platform is not changing. For example, in her speech, she rallied against the submersion of immigrants and stated that she is against, quote, globalism and Islam, 2 ideologies that want to dominate the world, unquote. When Jean-Marie Le Pen was leader of the party, he also held the stance of being very against Islam and immigration. On the Rassemblement National's website, they claim that the aim of the National Rally is to bring the nation together to defend its sovereignty, protect its integrity, and promote its historic values of civilization and identity. The National Gathering defends its national sovereignty and the independence of the nation. So assuming that you want to know a bit more in depth about their platform, let's answer a few questions you may have. What is Euroscepticism? Euroscepticism, also known as EU skepticism, is criticism of the European Union and European integration. The National Front started with a broadly positive stance towards the EU in the 1980s, but over time it developed a pro-Europe, anti-EU stance that persists in the party to this day. The early Front National held positions similar to those of the MSI, viewing Europe as a historic, geographic, cultural, economic, and social ensemble. It supported the creation of a European defense and further European collaboration aimed at making the EU into a strong confederal Europe of the nations. The evolution of the EU following the introduction of the Single European Act and the Maastricht Treaty led to a radical change in the party's stance. As the EU became something different from what the party had hoped it would be, and became impinging strongly on national sovereignty, the Front National changed radically its assessment of the EU. While maintaining its claim to be pro-European insofar as Europe was approached as a distinct civilization, it became strongly anti-EU, going so far as claiming the need for Frexit in its 2002, 2012, and 2017 manifestos. Regarding populism, the Front National has been one of the most successful of all populist parties in Western Europe. During the 1980s and 1990s, the party became a model for others through its combination of fervent nationalism, opposition to immigration, and a populist hostility to the political establishment. The Front National emphasizes ethno-nationalism, which is based on myths about the distant past, on strengthening the nation by making it more ethnically homogeneous, and on returning to traditional values. Basically, they want to make France white again. Additionally, individual rights such as liberal democracy are generally viewed as a secondary to the goals of the nation. The Front National also accuses the elites of France of putting internationalism ahead of the nation, and of prioritizing their own narrow self-interests, and various special interests over those people. These elements are all characteristic of populist groups. With all this being said, the Front National has changed somewhat since its creation, pursuing more principles of modernization and pragmatism, as well as adapting to the political climate. The leadership. Under Jean-Marie Le Pen, the executive body of the party was dominated by a small cohort of Le Pen's close supporters among top officials at the highest levels of the party hierarchy. New members of the political bureau were in practice co-opted or appointed by Le Pen, and formally agreed by a central committee. The composition of the political bureau reflected the factional structure of the party. People in charge of policymaking and administration were vested in the party chairman and the executive bureau. The top organs included the General Secretariat and General Delegation, which were conceived as interconnected although they had separate responsibilities. Beyond strict organizational purposes, this dual structure aimed primarily to diffuse power among top party executives, therefore strengthening Le Pen's personal leadership. Although it formally elected the chairman and the central committee, the party congress was not a governing body. It consisted of representatives from departmental federations who were elected by party members at the local level. The Front National Party congresses were mostly symbolic events serving to show party unity and indefectible grassroots support for Le Pen. Both the Central Committee and the National Council held very little power over the executive bodies. They both exercised a purely advisory role. After Marine took over as leader of the party, not much change was made to the organizational structure, with it maintaining a familial model of authoritarian leadership and the persistence of a highly centralized hierarchical party organization. Marine Le Pen promoted many members of her personal inner circle within the party. Although I'm sure by now you're aware of a few people, let's go over some of the current leadership. Jean-Marie Le Pen, leader of the party from 1972 through 2011, who is not happy with the name change and seems to have some daughter issues. Marine Le Pen, the current leader of the party since 2011, who is trying to remove the racist and anti-Semitic stigma that her father gave the party. This is considered to be an undemonization strategy. Marine wants to govern, and she does not want the party to be considered a protest movement. She eliminated her father's honorary title of honorary president for life, and she seems to have some father issues. The executive office is as follows. Marine Le Pen, President Deputy, Steve Briois, VP European Deputy, Valorant de Saint-Just, President of the Conflicts Commission, Luis Alliot, Mayor of Perpignan, Jordan Bardella, VP European Deputy, Nicolas Bay, European Deputy, Bruno Bilde, Deputy, Sebastian Cheno, Spokesperson Deputy, Jean-François Jacques, European Deputy, David Rachland, Mayor of Fréjus. And if you did not get all that, feel free to rewind, because it would make an awfully boring video if I repeated myself. Political relevance. So you might be asking yourself by this point, why does any of this matter? How is the National Rally relevant today? Well, first off, the National Rally won around 11 million votes in the 2017 presidential election. The best response to this was given by journalist Angelica Chrysifis, who works for the newspaper The Guardian, who said, "The party's presence is at the heart of French politics, where its ideas are regularly appropriated by mainstream parties. It is now taken for granted that Le Pen's presence in the presidential final round was accepted as inevitably by the political class for years. It was not met by the shock and mass street protests that greeted her father's reaching the final in 2002. Its issues are unlikely to go away, and the party gives no indication that it will either. The party is still fairly popular, and its platform will be used in an alternative when no other party is able to provide solutions for certain problems. Many of the party's issues have increasingly been adopted by mainstream centrist parties and do well in local and regional elections. Even though Marianne Marchal has technically left the party, she has parliamentary experience and is considered more far-right than Marine Le Pen, and she is seen by some as the future of the party. The National Rally has increased its vote from the 35 through 49 age group and currently has 8 seats in the National Assembly. Marine Le Pen is actually a member of parliament for the first time. In the 2017 legislative election, only 45% of registered voters showed up for the second round of voting, which was the lowest turnout in the history of France. This was likely because of election fatigue and resignation to Macron. There has also been an overall trend of turnout decline since '97. Macron's radical social and economic changes hold the potential to push blue-collar, less educated voters further towards the far left or right when they typically don't vote at all. Essentially, the left in France is really struggling, and this allows far-right parties such as the National Rally to succeed. Outside of France and within the European Parliament, the National Rally is a member of the Identity and Democracy Group. It is the fourth largest group in Parliament, with its member parties all being far-right groups from within their respective countries. There are 76 total members from 10 countries, with the majority from either the Lega from Italy, the Rassemblement National from France, or the AfD from Germany. The group also contains the Freedom Party of Austria, the Conservative People's Party of Estonia, Flemish Interest, the Finns Party, the Danish People's Party, the Freedom and Direct Democracy, and the Dutch Party for Freedom. So as you can see, the National Rally has a big impact on the rest of the EU, especially through its friendship with other far-right parties in the European Parliament. Regarding political relevance and gender, Dr. Dorit Jiva, supported by a European Commission Marie Curie Career Integration Grant, analyzed 3 gendered themes which permeated the National Rally discourse and its symbolic ecology. The first theme is of Marine Le Pen as a political daughter. She was seen as carrying the history of France and the history of the party. However, others saw Marine Le Pen as a symbol of the future. The second theme therefore highlights how the party's supporters identified with Marine Le Pen as a matriarchal avant-garde. Finally, the third theme shows how supporters of the party admired Marine Le Pen for her masculine virtues as a commander-in-chief. Marine Le Pen's failed 2017 presidential bid highlighted the success, and of no less importance the limitations, of her populist strategy. Qualitative observation shows how this strategy entailed gendered imagery and performances drawing from hegemonic gender. Additionally, this research shows how members of the party made sense of politics at large, and of their political leader specifically, through this symbolic repertoire. Marine Le Pen was all at once seen as a daughter, mother, warrior, maiden, seductress, captain, and commander, Joan of Arc, Napoleon Bonaparte, and Charles de Gaulle. Through these lenses, she was seen as representing the people and as counterposing elites. These themes are highly gendered repertoires through which members could express identification with Marine Le Pen and through which they articulated their socio-political critique. Thus, she simultaneously symbolized feminized and masculinized virtues. This gendered populist repertoire, especially the themes which emphasized her role as a mother caring for her people, and her masculine virility tied radical right nativism with populist repertoires. So as you can see, the National Rally is an important factor in politics both within and outside of France. The world will definitely be keeping an eye on them in the future, as well as the other far-right groups which are gaining more power across Europe and the globe. And that's everything. Thank you for watching. Shout out to my group members for doing the research. Goodbye.